Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's MCAA Roundtable discussion, sponsored by Miller Resource Group. And we are delighted to introduce our panel of experts, which include our moderator, Gary Miller, president of Miller Resource Group, and his fellow panelist, Shane Filer, General Manager for NSI Neal Systems, Scott Pierce, National Sales Director of United Electric, Scott Rollman, Sales Director of Vega Americas, and Matt Smith, President of Relevant Solutions. And for those guests on the line with me who don't know me personally, my name is Teresa Sebring, and I am the MCAA President, and we're delighted to have you with us today. Now, today we're going to take the whole hour to talk about new business development, customer acquisition in the post-COVID-19 era. We have a lot of information to share, and we want to answer as many of your questions as possible. So please use your Q&A feature so that I can keep them organized for our panelists today. If you need to speak with each other or to me directly, you can use your chat pane. Your chat toolbar there. One last thing, we will absolutely be recording today's session and post it to the MCAA member portal. And for those guests, we will send you a link to dropbox.com so that you can download it post-session. So without further ado, I'm going to turn everything over to Gary.
All right, and I think we're going to ask each member or each panelist to introduce themselves briefly. Shane, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I'm Shane Filer, Neal Systems. We're up in the Pennsylvania area near Philadelphia. We're a manufacturer's representative and integrator, and we cover everywhere from New York City to Virginia. So this whole coronavirus thing, New York City to Philly was a hotspot. So it's been an interesting time for us.
Thank you. Mr. Scott Pierce.
Thank you, Gary. Scott Pierce, been with United Electric for 35 years. Our core business and manufacturing is in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okie doke. Thank you. And Mr. Scott Rollman.
Hi, everybody. Scott Rollman. I work for Vega Americas. We're an implementation manufacturer out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been with the company just under 13 years, and the last 7 spent as sales director.
Thank you. And Mr. Matt Smith.
Matt Smith with Relevant Solutions. Much like Shane, we are industrial distributor, representative, and systems integrator. And opposite of Shane, we're from basically Louisiana to California, then all the way up to North Dakota. So we follow the pipeline on the central through the West Coast regions, and looking forward to this panel discussion.
All right, thank you very much. And I am Gary Miller, the president owner of Miller Resource Group. We're an executive recruiting company that for over 4 decades has specialized in process control and factory automation, and a good amount of that work has been focused on sales executives, sales engineers, regional sales managers, executives, et cetera. And that's where the genesis of this panel or this discussion came about, is as we've been talking to salespeople. Heck, the last 3 months, nobody could make any sales visits at all, hardly. And we started to think about our customers were telling us that, you know, it's going to start to open up, but visits will be limited, visits will be prioritized, there's going to be safety issues. So how will sales organizations adapt? And so we put the panel together of people who lead sales organizations, and we got the discussion going. So our practice session last week was very interesting, and there's some very provocative thoughts. So we're going to start it off with Shane. Shane, you started our discussion a few weeks ago with some interesting comments about the change that you're seeing and its pace.
Yeah, so certainly a lot of the things seem like they happened all of a sudden as a result of, 3 months ago when the country went on lockdown. But I think a lot of the things that started to be used by a lot of people were already things that were happening anyway. So it was more of an acceleration, a sudden acceleration that none of us quite expected that fast. But it's something that a lot of people have been doing. So certainly from a marketing standpoint, as an example, one of the things that we had been doing for about a year and a half was recognizing that we just weren't able to get out to visit customers as often. They were too busy. They had other things going on. it was presenting more and more of a challenge for your traditional outside sales guy that's used to being in there, visiting the person, walking around the plant, and that just wasn't able to happen. So certainly one thing we saw was there's a stat that Harvard Business Review said 34 times more effectiveness with a face-to-face interaction. How do you do that when you can't go visit your customers? And you know, the acceleration of things that allowed that to still occur certainly were video. You know, and video like we're doing now, but also video from a standpoint of just recording something that allows a customer to see you, trust you, see you face-to-face, gain some wisdom from you. And that's been happening for years, but it's accelerating faster now because we just can't get in there to visit them as quickly.
Thanks. Matt, you commented on that too about it was changing even before this pandemic.
Yeah, Gary. So what we've noticed, and you know, we're having a terrific year this year and a lot of growth. And it's like Shane said, it's not necessarily that things weren't already going this direction, that they've only accelerated. If you think about when some of us started in sales, we could have walked out into the alky unit of a refinery without a hot work permit, without any special training, with our tool belts, and helped the customer get a transmitter up and running. Nowadays, you can't even walk into a food and beverage facility making potato chips without PPE, special training, and rightfully so. But that's made it much more challenging for our salespeople to understand how products are used in the field, help troubleshoot things for customers. So under this environment, what we've noticed, and I've been on more face-to-face sales calls post-COVID than I had been the previous 6 months of pre-COVID, because the customers are wanting to engage with experts in these fields and not just generalists. So what's really cool, we had an example just last week. We're on a call with a client in Africa, so totally different continent, wanted to review our proposal. We had our experts in control valves on the call, expert in quarter turn valves, experts in instrumentation, experts in fire and gas, and experts in control systems, all interacting face-to-face with the customer halfway across the world. So this, like I said, we would have interfaced with them usually maybe on a conference call, maybe we wouldn't have pulled them all together, but that human interaction and that face-to-face made it a much more enriching conversation.
Mhm.
And it really helped us to engage that client in a different way and them to engage us in a different way, which ultimately helped us get the better solution pulled together. So we've taken some of our smartest people versus just our most available people, if that makes sense. So availability of, they can get on a plane and fly over there. Sometimes that's availability, but this technology is really made available to our customers, experts in the field, at a lot more instant and more interactive way.
Okay. Aren't there times when I've never been on an industrial sales call myself, but I've been in a lot of plants. Aren't there times where the sales engineer or the application engineer has to be like eyeballing the possible solution themselves?
So Gary, certainly so. There are definitely times where you have to be there, you have to look at it. But what I would say was another trend that was already happening was, again, some of these units, they just don't want you in there for safety. So a lot of our customers are sending us videos, they're sending us pictures, or instead of having 4 people walk down the site, you have 1 person walk down the site with their intrinsically saved video, and they're showing 5 other people on the back end what they're seeing in the field and having that conversation and dialogue to actually walk it down virtually with 1 person instead of maybe 5. So that's becoming, it was already happening. I just love what Shane said. This stuff was already happening. It just made it accelerate at a rate of a hockey stick approach that we're seeing at a much faster rate.
Sure. Scott, you had some interesting comments about marketing and new business development and social media and how is your team? What new initiatives have you put in place?
Yeah.
Thanks. Which one?
Oh, sorry. Which Scott do you want? I think we both.
Scott Rollman.
Okay. Sorry, Scott.
Great name to have.
You can never have too many Scotts in a room, though, so remember that. Things that I found most interesting during the break were, just as Shane and Matt said, are what instant accessibility can mean and putting a subject matter expert in front of someone. So that's been interesting. And also how some of these tools like the Zoom meeting we're on right now can be used to build trust and some sort of a comfort level with a human versus the face-to-face. I think there is certainly a place for this, and it's going to continue. Some things that we found were interesting during the break were to use tools like this and figure out what we can do and how we can push them to their limits to create more efficiencies. Things like customer webinars with professional credits. What could we do to make those even better if we combine that with a campaign in LinkedIn to build up our networks? And all those kind of technologies seem to have a place where they play really well, but I think they play really well when you play with many of them together in a campaign versus as a single tool. So we've spent a lot of time really trying to be creative and trying some new things, and fail small, win big kind of scenarios with how we use the technology. But one of the ones that the two guys said is giving accessibility to people that would have had to get on an airplane or drive 3 or 4 hours before. Now you can do that very quickly. And there's a huge benefit just in the efficiency right there of being able to have a subject matter expert talk to 3 customers in a day versus fly across the country to talk with one. So those are some of the learnings that I think we should continue to expand upon using these tools moving forward.
Thank you. So Scott Pierce, you're the batting fourth. That's because you're the home run hitter. So
A lot of pressure.
if you remember, so you can jump on any one of these topic lines you want and talk us about your experiences at UE.
Well, I would certainly mirror what all my colleagues have talked about as it relates to the ability to touch a lot of people. I think that right now in this, what I would call the pandemic era, right? A lot of us are learning new tools. I can remember the first meeting we had, Gary, and we all made the decision to turn our cameras on for the first time. And we were all in shock. We were horrified. And I think that one of the suggestions that I have for anyone that's trying to ramp up on Teams and Zoom and GoToMeeting, all the things that are happening, is that it's paramount. It's incumbent upon all of you to request your audience to turn their cameras on, so that you can see their involvement, their engagement. And it's no different than that face-to-face meeting where you can see what reaction you're getting back in turn. Plus, there's also a very unique psychological edge here, and that is, for the most part, we're all in each other's homes for the very first time. So it's kind of a unique position to be in, where you're in someone's home, and so it brings a personal touch to the communication in what we call now kind of the post-pandemic era that we're in. And I don't see things changing for a good while. So I think we're going to continue this. Just recently, just to kind of pick up on what Matt was talking about, I think in the last 45 days globally, my colleagues and myself have touched at least over 400 people by GoToMeetings. Whether they're channel partners or customers, we've touched a lot of people around the world. And I would challenge each of us individually, we'd never be able to do that on our own. So great time to reach out and use technology.
Hey, Scott, if I can jump in real quick.
Sure.
I took away last time the thing that you said about turning your cameras on. And I told our sales team to do exactly that. And one of them said, what if the customer feels uncomfortable then that you're suddenly telling him to turn on his camera? I said, well, why don't you warn him before you're getting on? We'd like to turn our cameras on just so we can have some, human interaction here. And so I thought that was a great idea that you shared.
Good point, Shane.
It
Absolutely.
does make a big difference when people can see you. It's the people who participate most heavily in the meetings I'm in almost always have their camera on.
Great touch.
Yeah, my own observation here, I've met 2 of you at previous meetings, and two of you are new, but we've spent, over an hour together on this forum or this venue. And I feel like I know you I really know you well, or certainly much better. Scott Rollman, we've known each other for a long time. We've had a couple of chats at MCAA, but this is as much FaceTime as we've ever had together. And I feel like I just know you better. So I think the medium is definitely going to help that.
I agree.
Scott Rollman, speaking of that, we were talking about new business development and targeting customers. And when you can't, the old days, it was the salesperson would roam the streets looking for smokestacks, right? And somehow try to break in and get in to see somebody. So that's obviously changed. How does this impact the strategy for new business development?
Is it still my turn?
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna.
Okay. So again, we've been experimenting with some different forums. Something that we found to be quite effective was we have specific topics that we put out there, and we use this network that we've created in LinkedIn for part of it, but we also target specific industries or known users of specific technologies, and we're able to significantly bolster our CRM database with contacts by doing that. So we've gained quite a few new customers. We have a lot of brand new customers entered into our CRM with orders. So we know it's working. So we're going to continue to do that and continue to explore what topics are most interesting. I would throw out a little tidbit here. Maybe this is a golden nugget, but if you ask your service people what the customers ask most about, generally those customers will want to get on a webinar if that topic is being discussed.
So Gary, I have a question from the audience that might segue nicely here. And we're talking about the success of these various web meetings, and how are you all thinking about, or are you thinking about making lasting structural changes to your outside teams? And I'll add on, because of our previous conversation, perhaps inside teams.
Matt Smith, you had a comment on that. We were talking about that in the warm-up.
Yeah, so if I can add to that, and thank you, Scott, as well. Yeah, structurally, it is going to change a lot. What's going to going forward, we're still going to be heavily invested in people, but you begin to functionalize your sales teams a little bit more. So you have inside sales that consumes and takes in requests from customers, but there's also going to be an inside person that's focused on making outbound prospecting calls, specific to when the customer says, hey, I am interested in that application that was posted. You can have somebody that's instantly reaching back out to that customer, engaging them and setting up that sales call for the outside person, or servicing them and sending it maybe to one of our technicians or one of our engineers based upon their request. So if it's a combustion application, we're going to get them to the best person to help them for combustion. If it's a level application, we're going to get them to the best person that can help with level. So a lot of that is already evolving. We started doing a lot of customer-focused marketing, and we have more data to understand what customers want before they engage with us. So by the time they engage with us, we understand if they're looking at level and flow, and it helps us and it helps our team service the customer better, because we know what they are looking for and what they're trying to get to. So instead of the old school show up and throw up strategy that we would have, and when we get to the customer site and just hope something sticks, we know what they're looking for, and they're much more appreciative of that. So we already started moving down that path, and I think our company is going to move down that path more aggressively because of this change.
Shane, you talked about maybe salesperson of the future might have some marketing DNA. What are your comments on that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're seeing more and more from a lot of the companies we represent, and also we did ourselves, is full-time marketing people, where they take people who either have been in the business or interact heavily with those who know the business to help do some form of interaction with customer, whether it's LinkedIn or digital media marketing of some sort, or videos is a big piece of it. But shifting away from the thought process of, I need to have X number of outside salespeople per geography to I need to make sure I have subject matter experts. I need to make sure I'm using digital media to effectively reach a group. I need to have service people who can go out and do it. And last time when we were talking, I shared about how we were in the process of selling our house. And I hired my son to help us represent the house and market the house, because I recognize that as an 18-year-old, he knows technology through and through, and he thinks differently. And so he put together what he thought would be important from a marketing standpoint, published it on Zillow, and very quickly, the first day, it was the #1 house in all of our city that we live in. So he did an amazing job, but he did it in a different way than it would have been done differently. And so I really think we're going to see more and more of that for sure.
Means I may not be getting calendars from all my local real estate agents in the future. Scott Pierce, you manage a pretty big sales organization with a distribution channel. How do you help your distributor and channel partners see this change are coming or measure their ability to change?
Good question. I think for us, as it relates to channel partners, outside of having a fundamentally real solid relationship and communication with channel partners, and a lot of our efforts have come from the front end of our website, and having a website that in a landing page that our prospects and suspects, if they go to that web page, can we answer the questions that they might have up front or quickly? And oftentimes we find when we can answer the question before they contact us, we're ahead of the game, where our channel partners are ahead of the game. The other piece of the puzzle is having a website that you can capture those hits on. Once you can capture those hits, then you can start nurturing them and bringing them to what we would call sales qualified leads. Leads you can hand off to a channel partner or our strategic sales reps, where they can make quick sense out of them and have an interesting party ready to receive them. And that's worked out pretty well for us to nurture, qualify, and then close. Very important to measure the process along the way. However, that's paid a lot of dividends for manufacturers like us that are working through a large group of channel partners and sales associates out on the road. The one key thing that I think is also, just to kind of pick up on this discussion, is I remember back in the day, we used to, as sales managers, count activity. And that was important, counting activity. And I think in this post-COVID-19 era, what we have found is that thinking and execution is really more important than activity. And so that's an important piece of the puzzle too, to look at what you're doing. If what you're doing is successful, it's much easier to measure as just running around the country and seeing a lot of people. I called it windshield time back in the day. But I think we're beyond.
Matt, we touched on that last week a little bit. Traditional metrics would be sales visits, pipeline, proposals out, things of that nature. But sales visits and how many sales calls the sales people made on a weekly basis, the call reports, if you will, those front end activities were important. Where do you see the metrics, the measurements changing to measure the front end activity of your sales organization?
So a great question. Some of it's going to be front end on the prospecting side of it, further upstream. So how many hits are we getting? Are we converting those into leads for our salespeople? So when I look at our business, our hit rate and win rate continues to escalate and grow. So for us, the biggest challenge is measuring leads and getting those in and expanding those into larger deals. So as we look at it, it's not necessarily how much leads are my salespeople generating, how much funnel are they generating, it's how efficient are they with the leads in the funnel that they're receiving. So I think that old school methodology of I need all my salespeople doing front end business development, prospecting. I think that's what we heard people like Scott Rollman was talking about, Scott Pierce, is that's going to be a different group of people that we're going to hold responsible for generating the leads, and then have salespeople that are outbound responsible for capturing the leads and turning that into value. So those metrics are going to definitely change. We're already changing the way we look at those metrics in terms of expansion of the scope. Instead of, are they responding to what the customer asked for, or are they expanding that to more? So that's been a big key to our success this year, is expanding that scope and growing it and finding ways to solve customer problems. So that's really how we see it changing. Also with inside sales, there are going to be more metrics around the speed and the quality of which we get customers what they request and convert those to orders. So instead of just the traditional, how many lines have you entered, how many have you received, it's the efficiencies and the speed at which you've taken care of that customer problem. So all of those are going to continue to change. And as we have these data sets, which we're already gathering, which has been great. I'm glad we started gathering these a year ago. It's been very helpful for us to grow our business that way.
Shane, what about you? What about what kind of leading indicators are you going to be looking at?
You know, certainly one of the things that are really important to us, because we have such a diverse area where we're at. We're not, you know, where Matt's at, it's heavily oil, gas, chemical. With us, it's all over the place. And so one of the things that we really pay a lot of attention to is in our area, which we have just about every type of industry, who is going to come out of the last 3 months and be doing well overall, and which ones are probably going to struggle for a while, and how do we help all of them? But how do we make sure that we're especially helping those that you know, we know are going to be contributing in some way locally, in a way that's going to help the manufacturers that we represent. So we pay a lot of attention to that. That's an important piece that's watched heavily by us. The other thing that we're trying to do a little differently is we recognize, again, as salespeople are not as welcome for a variety of reasons now, especially safety. We've been visiting customers for the last 3 months constantly with our service team. And so we are trying to put in place something where we measure how much interaction we have from our service team standpoint with those people to say, how else can we help you? And what other products can we help you with? They're in there, they have the relationship, the customer wants to have them in there. How can we sell slightly differently moving forward with people that are wanted and are in there on a regular basis? So those are two big ones that I would say we're paying a lot of attention to.
One time we had a client that wanted to, he had success hiring service technicians and teaching them how to sell. And he wanted us specifically to go find service technicians that were open to that. And we remember talking to one, he said, no, I don't want to do that. I just like helping customers solve problems. And so we said, well, if you go out and visit a lot of customers and look for problems to solve, they'd be real happy. And he said, really? And they wound up hiring the fellow. And so, Scott, you probably have more feet on the street than anybody in your company and in your channel. What are some of the leading indicators you're going to look for?
Sure. Did you mean Rollman?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
So I think Shane said it earlier, he brought up the stat from Harvard about the value of a personal interaction. And I don't think that goes away. I just think it's different. So my thinking is that we still want to measure that activity because we know that it is an important part of an external seller's role or an SME or service person. But I think that we need to be more flexible in maybe the way that some of us think about what a impactful customer touch looks like. There could be a fantastic phone call. There could be a fantastic Zoom meeting. There could be a fantastic training webinar. All those things I think are the new normal for the salesperson. He or she has to somehow balance what those look like, and it needs to be relevant to the customer. There's going to be sales visits that are definitely face-to-face worthy, and the customer is going to say, come on in, we need to talk about that. So if your value message is that crisp and that impactful, you'll probably get that results more often. But if you're just asking to come see them to catch up, I think you're going to see a lot of that move to, well, let's talk on the phone now, or let's have a virtual meeting now. So my thinking philosophically is to measure the impact of a customer touch. If it's impactful, it's very valuable, and the quality of the data that you get from it. So are you capturing good information during whatever the form the touch took, and are you putting that into your CRM or whatever system your company uses so that it can be actionable in the future? I think that's where the kind of the secret sauce lies.
When you talk about data, are you talking about like all relevant technical data, or are you also thinking about the customer's dog's name or his son's in Little League or that sort of data? Is that good data?
Well, if you'd have asked me 6 months ago, I would have said the technical data. But in the new normal, I think that just being genuinely able to ask somebody, "Hey, how are you doing? How's your business? What's changed for you all?" Those kind of questions, I think you're going to get some pretty cool information if you can maybe freeform capture that somehow in a way that's usable by others. I think you'll benefit from it, and your company will, and anybody else who touches that customer, and the customer will benefit long term as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that old adage, people buy from people that they like and trust. I think this just is going to amplify our ability to get to know more people a little easier. I'm going to shift the topic a little bit to investment. If you recall at the a previous MCAA webinar, ITR Economics, Alex Shashovsky. By the way, I'm going to do a quick plug here for MCAA. We have many guests in the audience who are not members. This is the kind of content that regularly is produced by MCAA for its members. So if you're interested in finding out more, make sure you contact Teresa. It's a fantastic association. But Alex Shashovsky from ITR Economics said that you should always invest in your business. You should always invest in your people. But if you are able to do it when everybody else is running for the hills, you'll come out so much stronger. What kind of, Shane, we'll start with you. We'll go left to right on my screen. Investing in the future, investing in your people. Where would you be making investments right now?
So if I look back over the last year, we made 3 investments that I feel definitely either are paying off already or will be paying off very shortly. The first one about a year ago was a full-time marketing person. And certainly, I think a lot of the companies that we interact with are starting to go that route, recognizing how important that is. But I have to say, it isn't something that you can easily measure the ROI on right away. It's a momentum builder that just grows and grows and grows and grows. And I had shared about one of my inspirations was my roommate from college moved to Austin about 12 or 13 years ago to start a home building business. He knew nobody knew him, and he needed to find a way to compete. And so he brought a camera and started filming best practices and how-tos. And now his average, he's got 800 some videos that he's done over the last 12 years. His average video watched is somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 to 1 million watches. And he's built trust by doing that, but it's all marketing investment that took time to really build up. So marketing was one big one for us. A second one, which either was the most brilliantly timed thing or the worst timed thing, was we tripled our space to bring people into our office for training. And so when people talked about social distancing for work, we were able to give our employees 3,000 square feet each during the last 3 months because we had a huge place with no one here. But we're looking forward to bringing people here. So we think training is a big one that more and more people are going to need to have and invest in. Scott Rollman mentioned about doing the professional development hours. We think training is a huge one. And the last one is I really think that there's a lot of people that I see in our marketplace that have invested heavily over the last 30 to 40 years. They're ready to get out, to retire. They're ready to turn it over to someone that can run their business well. So we bought a company literally the day before Pennsylvania went on lockdown to give us a lot more access to some industries that we wanted and also some service people and capabilities that we wanted as well. So I certainly think I'd be putting my investment in looking for where are places where people are looking to move on to their next stage in life, and you can bring in a great company of some sort that makes a lot of sense and matches up with who you are. So those are our three that we've spent a lot on the past year.
Thank you. Scott Pierce, where will you be investing in your new business development efforts?
Well, I think there's two levels. You can look at this as a company level perspective, and then as individuals. As far as a company, the areas that I think are going to be key for the future are technologies. There are technologies that are available that have been possibly started, and then funds have dried up, and those companies or that intellectual property, it's going to be available, as we've already alluded to. But I think the other thing too is you've got to really, as individuals, look internally. We have to look inward. And as my father had always told me, he said, son, if you want the things that other people don't have, you have to be willing to do what they're not going to do. And I think as individuals, we've really got to look inward. And this great medical term or psychological term called neuroplasticity, we have to teach ourselves new things that may be very uncomfortable, and train our minds to do things that we haven't done before as individuals. But that's going to be paramount upon all of us, no matter what our persona is, to move to the future. And of course, the post-pandemic era, which I don't think is going to go away for a while.
Thank you. Matt Smith, where will you be investing going forward?
So Gary, I'll answer that question. I noticed there's a lot of questions around that on this chat, asking about how we're investing in IT departments and CRMs. So I'll try to answer those questions on the chat as well. You know, for us, it's still going to be people. We're a people business, and we're going to keep investing in that. That outbound, whether it's you call it outbound sales or outbound marketing, is going to be critical. Our IT infrastructure, one of the things I think we got lucky with was we actually upgraded our ERP. And while I wasn't necessarily for it at the time, we went to the cloud, and we couldn't have been luckier. We went to COVID. We're not hitting a VPN. We don't have 30 or 40 people trying to get onto our VPN to get to our business system. We got that on the cloud. We're going to keep investing in our digital footprint. That is one that quite frankly, we're behind in, but yet we still generate an enormous number of leads from that digital footprint that we have. So we're going to continue to invest in that, but we need to take that digital footprint and go ahead and close the loop with the outbound marketing and sales part of it, and then close it with the CRM. So people talk about the CRM, and there's a lot of people that bogged down their outside sales force of just trying to enter data. Well, now what we have with our CRM is linking marketing with the CRM, and it's pulling it together. So it's creating value for the salesperson now because they understand what the customer's behaviors are before they get there. So instead of the old days of them just having contacts in there and deals, now they have contacts in there that are hitting the website, sending them emails, and they get a digital footprint of this client so they know how to help them. And it's not additional work on them. It's bringing value to them through that CRM. We're also doing things in the CRM like sharing documents back and forth. So if somebody has a very similar project, it's easier for them to access information on a project similar that somebody else is chasing at, say, P66. We have several of those refineries across the map. Now they can see what's going on with all the different refineries and understand what we're selling. So integrating your IT infrastructure with your business systems, your CRMs, and your marketing, those three are going to be absolutely critical to give the business intelligence to everybody in the company and make better business decisions. So that's where we're going to spend a lot of our money over the next couple of years.
Thank you. Scott Rollman, I'm going to double up here. I'm going to ask you about your investments, but there's a question on online lead generation. What types of sales enablement tools have you had success with? And I know you've amped up your LinkedIn initiative. So could you comment on investment and social media?
Sure. I agree with what everybody else said on the investments. But I have a strong opinion that the people is the most important part. So we're going to continue to invest not only in the people we have today to train them, and that can be on the product, that can be on social skills, that can certainly be on the CRM. The CRM is very important, but we're going to continue to add people as it makes sense. There's a lot of really great people out there that have run into some hard situations. I think it makes sense to keep an open mind for that, and especially people that are very good with data, especially marketing data. I think that there's going to be an opportunity for a lot more roles from that perspective. To have somebody who can slice and dice data for you very quickly can be a huge asset for making business decisions and other investment decisions. The second topic was LinkedIn. So all during the break, I keep calling it the break. What are we officially calling this? The pandemic work from home period.
Pandemic era.
Anyway, while we were doing that, we had specific tasks and we asked people to make videos about how products work. We've asked people to expand their connections, to look at the decision-making unit in some of our customers and figure out where there's other people you haven't connected with. What would that look like if you did? What if they were in our network? All those kind of things. And again, like I made the comment very early on in this discussion, the people that are going to be the most successful in this new environment are the ones who are able to take all of those campaigns and mesh them into something that works as a larger cohesive package. So the reason why we had so many customers attend our webinars is because our LinkedIn network had been expanded so significantly. Our CRM database had been expanded so significantly that we could touch so many more people and then even just basically invite them to show up. So I think that the social networking part is a big component of that, and LinkedIn has been what we've so far seemed to be the most successful with.
Good.
Does that answer your question, Gary?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. What about and we're going to go for about 5 more minutes, and then the questions are coming in. So actually, there was a quick question here about bringing everybody back to the office. Where are you in your business as usual cycle? Shane?
So, we always were not really fans of people working remotely, but we have to say that during the last 3 months, we've seen some people especially have been far, far more productive working from home than they are in the office. Just because when you're at the office, we have such a fun culture. We talk a lot and have fun, and working from home, you get a lot done. So I think certainly we'll be a lot more flexible with that. And certainly we see that having invested in all the capability to do that already, to allow people to work from home, and everyone has laptops and that sort of thing, it makes sense to continue it in many cases. So I think it's something that's not going to go away.
Scott Pierce, what do you think about that?
Well, I would agree with Shane. As for us in manufacturing with 200 or so employees, we still are essential and we're still manufacturing product. We've gone to 2 shifts, spreading our manufacturing personnel out, which are doing outstanding jobs. However, we're in Boston, and it's a different scenario up in Boston area where we have physically distanced our staff in the office and marketing. And so that looks like that may continue for a while. And I think to Shane's point, our personnel, our people have embraced the change and the technology and the productivity. I have to tell you, it's good, it's up. So it's been a great thing. I know everyone would like to get back together again and get back to the office, and I think that may take a little bit more time to get that done.
Scott Rollman, and I'll ask you this, Matt, too. You've got people scattered about in different states and different regulations. I mean, how are you managing all that? What's your plan?
Sure. Well, we've tried to base everything on the area where we have the most expertise, and that's Ohio. So what we've done is we've taken a quick look at Ohio into what that looks like. And we actually started back into the office last week for the majority of the people. So we're on 50% on for the first couple of days of the week, 50% the second 2 days of the week. And those are more office type people. Manufacturing's been going throughout this entire period. But we're starting to introduce those people back, and we're trying to mimic that with our remote employees also. So basically, if your state started going back to work 30 days ago, as Ohio did, as of last Monday, we're kind of staging other states to mimic that. But with every single person, I do have a conversation, because I want to not just look at it from what the governor or what the county decided, but what the person thinks is the right decision locally. So a lot of conversations have been had to make sure that we're making the right decisions. And all my peers here that have people reporting them are all doing the same thing. So it's been a lot of phone calls, been a lot of Zoom meetings, but we feel like we're doing things the safe way and the way that's best for our employees and our customer base.
Good. Matt, you've got people in quite a few different places. How are you managing that?
Yeah, we definitely had different local laws. California and Texas couldn't be more different, but we managed that to follow whatever the local laws were first and foremost. But even more so than that, we went out and did surveys to every one of our 300 employees to ask them, do you want to come back to work? And when do you want to come back to work? And majority of them were ready to get back to work. So we asked any employees that had extenuating circumstances that would prevent them from coming back if they wanted to stay behind. So, like Scott said, there are individuals and you have to take those in consideration. They are people, which is the most important part of our business. But for the most part, everybody wants to get back, and we've been able to manage that. And I'd also say, similar to what Shane said, we had people, their productivity went through the roof remotely. And Gary, for somebody like you that's in the recruiting business, I think this is going to change for you. And because it's changed for us, we just hired our first inside salesperson that's nowhere near a brick and mortar location, because we saw how productivity could go up. Is a highly experienced person that got cut from a company that left the business. And while we didn't have a branch in that state, we went ahead and hired the person because their skill sets were so great that, they could do inside sales from anywhere. So we're definitely moving to that.
And I would think your onboarding and training and orientation with that person remotely is effective too.
It's funny you mentioned that. We really like to train people with hands-on, and they were doing videos of it. We actually have them tear down and build transmitters, and everybody that comes to work for us has to do that. That's just part of the function. So we just had our digital tear down and build up, and I heard that was fun and it worked out great. So you made me chuckle because they were talking about that today with me of how that went.
Mm-hmm. There's a question that came in. It said if let's say you expected your people to make 12 customer visits a week, is there a new normal, or is that number gonna be off the charts in terms of things you don't measure anymore if you're replacing it with some other engagement measurement? Shane, you got a thought on that?
Yeah, we asked that question, I'd say about a month ago from our team, just to get a feel for what was really happening. Because, you'd hope in an average week before all this occurred that your sales guys who are outside would be visiting a good 5 to 10 customers per week minimum. And what we heard was that now a lot of them were saying, I'm having interactions of 50 to 75 people per week. It just skyrocketed. So I really do think that we're going to fundamentally change the way that we work, because now we've all got this capability and we realize just how more productive we can be. I actually talked to another rep owner who said, I'm actually going to somewhat look down on people who think that they're doing well just because they're busy driving places. We want to start measuring effectiveness, not just I'm out on the road.
Sure. Yeah, I talk about new norms. We've last few months we've actually negotiated final details of significant job offers by text. So who's to say? What about Scott? I want to ask you, Scott Pierce, you're up to, will your profile for the kind of sales executive or professional you want to hire in the future change?
A good question again. I think for us, the key factor, the one thing that we're blessed with at UE is the tenure that we have. If you take our average tenure of my sales associates, it's well over 100 years. Most of us have tenure of 25 years or plus. So that's a lot of tribal knowledge that has accumulated and creates quite a bit of value for the company today. However, the future, it's a different story. We've got to start looking at the persona of the type of person that would fit this post-pandemic pandemic era. And I think that type of individual will be someone that is more of a, as we had talked about before, a marketer, a promoter. And I think that promoters are good to have today with the social media platform that's available to sell products, and someone that knows how to use that. So again, I do probably see that there'll be a change in that persona that we'll look for. And it won't be the guys that are used to the features and benefits of old days, where you walk in and do a lunch and learn. It's going to be done through social media and other elements that we create, especially the website.
Yeah, Matt Smith, I wonder if your new job descriptions will say must have video presence.
No, it probably will. As you think through that, a lot of the people we're interviewing right now, there's a video presence there. And it's definitely something. I think about my kids that are on TikTok and all those fun apps that they do. They have incredible video presence, and it's very endearing, right? They've learned how to engage that way, and in a way that's, like I say, it's fun, it's endearing, and it's memorable. So I don't know that I'm going to do a TikTok interview, but I do believe that video presence probably is something that we should truly think about. And Gary, I don't know about the rest of the panel here, but after 2 weeks of COVID and being on all these Teams or Zoom calls, I did a conference call about 2 weeks later, the old punch in the number and punch in your access code. And it felt like I went back in time 20 years after 2 weeks of this. It was the strangest, most odd feeling. I don't know if anybody else went through that, but it's a very odd feeling. And I do think it makes a difference, and it will be something that we need to add.
Gary, if I could add, Matt, when you come up with your first TikTok, would you send it to me, please?
Sure thing, Scott.
So Gary, playing off of that, and looking for video and kind of people being comfortable in this kind of format, one of our questions from the audience is, are you looking at training for your current staff to make them more effective in these kind of online virtual environments?
Scott Rollman, what about you?
Yes, we are actively looking at how to do short film clips. We've been doing podcasts for quite a while, mainly internal podcasts, but we have quite a number of people who've been trained how to create a quick 2 to 3 minute quick hit to get out to the rest of the sales force. So this is something that we've actually been doing, but as we discussed earlier, it's now accelerated because there's obviously a need. So to tie that to the individual, the job description, I think that versatility is going to have to be a big part of people we hire in the future. They've got to be open to some of these new ideas. No matter how successful they've been in the past, some of these things are going to be more and more important as they morph into the new normal. So I think that is something to definitely look at and also to train your people on.
Yeah, I want to kind of, we're near the wrap-up stage. I want to go back to the beginning and kind of wrap this up with talking about the trust word. Shane, let's ask everybody to comment on how in the future, how building trust with your customers is going to be more important, and how do you see this medium helping do that?
Certainly one trust thing that I see that has kind of hit us all in the last 5 years without realizing it, we call it the Amazon effect, where, and I certainly see this in the younger generation and certainly my kids, that They expect things to be delivered to them similar to how Amazon delivers to them in all aspects of things, where they certainly expect that when I place my order, I get to see other options that might be important to me. I'm going to get to see that a response comes immediately. I get to see when it's tracking. I get to see when it's arrived. All those sorts of things. And so I have a feeling between that aspect of things that is definitely hitting our industry hard. The expectations are being ramped way up in many of those avenues. I think some of the avenues like this, people are going to expect that when I reach out and I need something, rather than I'll wait until someone comes to visit me in a couple of weeks or what have you, why can't we do it now? Hey, I'm interested right now to have this discussion. I've got my camera, I can show you now. So I think that's something that's going to happen more and more. The speed, that acceleration is just going to continue and get faster and faster.
Sure. Scott Pierce, you want to comment on that?
Well, the impact I think that is yet to come, and we'll all see it here in the near future, is the industrial Internet of Things. And those are devices that literally will tell you their health and when they need to be replaced, possibly to Shane's point, even in fact order its replacement. And the replacement, the intuitive replacement of that device will be fairly simple. And if you don't know how to do it, just go to YouTube and you'll find it there. So it's coming. It'll be here.
Matt Smith, obviously you're having a record year, you said, and it's obvious that your customers trust you. How do you continue that and build it even stronger?
It's going to continue. A big piece of it, I think like Scott Rollman and others have mentioned here, it really is about the people. We were way ahead of investing in people and training and investing and training. I shudder to look at our training budget. It's a big number. So we're going to continue to do that, but we got to do it more efficiently. We got to do it better, and we got to give them the enablement tools and getting that digital platform put together that's going to link our CRMs, our ERPs, our marketing systems. I think it's going to be a game changer for us. And that whole instant gratification, this country by far requires that more than anybody. And I think as Shane and Scott hit on, is that instant gratification and the way they expect to be served has changed rapidly. So if you're not putting the money into your IT infrastructure to do that, where humans aren't trying to do this for you, then you're going to shortchange your employees that are wanting to solve problems and not chase down tracking information. You're going to shortchange your customers. So that's going to be a big piece of keeping that moving and keeping our people focused on solving customer problems and not transacting business.
Thanks. Scott Rollman, last comment on trust building?
Sure, I see it as two distinctly different opportunities. On the business development side, I think forums like this with clear value messaging as to why you're asking for the person's time are going to give you a leg up if you can do it well. So getting, whether it's a face-to-face like we're doing now or whether it is in person, whatever the message is that puts you in front of that person, and the content and the SMEs you put in front of them are going to be very important to build trust with new people. So on the business development side, my personal opinion, and I have a lot of those, I call them SPOs, Scott's personal opinion, is that with our current customers that have been doing business with us for a long time, that trust right now needs to be reinforced. So, we can't just be so excited to get out into the field again that we're just uber aggressive, asking them a bunch of questions about what they're going to buy. We need to be going out and splitting the aggressiveness with some empathy as well, because a lot of people are in some pretty interesting circumstances right now. And I think the people that blend that also will do quite well.
Well, it's obvious that this panel is well positioned to come out of this pandemic era even stronger. I've been interviewing and recruiting people. I could be in the Guinness Book of World Records for having interviewed more people than anybody. And I've never, ever, ever had somebody tell me they want to leave their company because they invest too much in me, they train me too much, and they care about me too much. So my GPO is that profits come from long-term customers. Long-term customers come from great, well-established employees. So find good people, take care of them, give them a lot of training, support, and love, and we'll all bounce hard out of this. So, Teresa, I want to thank everybody for participating and your attention. I want to thank our outstanding panelists. I want to thank Teresa for setting this all up. Teresa, any final comment?
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. And of course, to our audience, we do have some outstanding questions that came in, a few comments as well that you guys did a fantastic job. Thanks for sharing the information in the comments. There are a couple of questions we didn't get to, and we'll try to address those post-session. Just want to let you guys know, especially for our guests, that we do sessions like this on a regular basis. Our next one is planned for June 30th, and we're going to be talking about acquisitive growth and partnership in the midst of COVID-19, and we'll feature MCAA member Will Burnett, president of Owner Resource Group. So that'll be a new perspective on business development and things like that. And so we welcome you back, and we hope to hear from you, and look forward to having you on our next session. For our members on the call, remember, we are your association. If you are experiencing challenges or you need resources, please think of us as your team as well, and we're happy to help you in any way we can. So with that, gentlemen, thank you for all of your hard work and for our practice sessions. This has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing it again. And to everyone else, we wish you very good health, well-being, and we look forward to sharing more content and informative sessions in the weeks to come. So thanks, everybody. Well done.
Thanks,
Take
everybody.
care.
Thank you.
Good job,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.